So you might think you know who the world champions of football are, or soccer, wherever you happen to be in the world. But I'm here to tell you you're wrong, because I've uncovered something that I think is just really freaking cool, and I really dig it, and I'm glad I get to share it because this is the way the championship of football, the way it should be decided. All this World Cup nonsense with the qualifying, the group stages, the knockouts. Now, this is the simplest way of all to decide who the champion of a sport is. I can't believe it took me this long for somebody to actually point me in this direction, too. I feel like this is something that somebody should have told me about a very long time ago. It's called the Unofficial Football World Championships. Really, I'm saying it should be official. But what it is, it's something that's kept track of the champion of football, but it does it in a boxing style, where if you become the champion, you then own the belt until somebody beats you. And on the surface, this might be kind of hard to wrap your head around, but let me give you an idea. All right, the way this has been maintained is that it starts with the first ever competitive match, which if you don't know what that was, it was England v. Scotland in 1872. That was the first ever competitive international football match. So technically, the Unofficial Football World Championship is on the line for that match, right? The first national team to claim to be the best national team in the world. Well, they played that match again the next year. England won 4-2, and that means that England would become the football world champions. And ever since that time, an unofficial football world champion has been tracked. I mean, they obviously weren't doing this back in 1872, but whoever's put this together, right? Whoever's put this together has gone all the way back to that beginning and tracked basically they beat them, then they beat them, then they beat them, then they beat them, then they beat them. And you just amplify that over the history of football in general. And you get your unofficial football world champion today, which is Algeria. According to the chain of custody of the championship of football, starting with that win by England over Scotland in 1873, Algeria is the world champion of football. They have won the belt. They beat the team that had the belt before them in order to claim it. But that's a particularly interesting story because you know the match that Algeria needed to win in order to claim that belt? Liberia. Algeria had to beat Liberia, who was the reigning holder of the Unofficial Football World Championship with the custody passed all the way down. It was Algeria. And all Liberia had to do was beat Sierra Leone. Okay, so some crazy teams have ended up in charge of this Unofficial Football World Championship. But as you can tell, it's awesome. So it started and bounced around in the UK, obviously, for a long time. You have a ton of titles and title defenses for Scotland and England and Wales and Northern Ireland. They all got involved in all of this early on. And the title didn't even leave the British Isles until 1931 when it was shipped over to Austria for the first time. And Austria became the inaugural unofficial football world champions. This thing actually moves around pretty quickly, though, because unsurprisingly, teams lose fairly frequently. Like if we go back to the modern day, Sierra Leone got it from Ivory Coast. Ivory Coast, was the team that they got it from Uruguay, who got it from Argentina, who got it at the World Cup in 2022. So it's been passed pretty consistently to Uruguay, to Ivory Coast. Then it's in Africa, and Ivory Coast has a bunch of matches it needs to play in Africa. And if you know anything about the Ivorian national team, or if you've watched this channel a good bit, you know that Ivory Coast is going to struggle. They just do. They've been very inconsistent at best over the last 10 years. And so they drop a match to Sierra Leone, and now all of a sudden the belt's gone. And based off the chain of custody, Sierra Leone is the unofficial football world champion. And then on to Liberia, who's more than capable of beating Sierra Leone. And then on to Algeria. At least it's back in the hands of a team that, I would say commands respect on the international stage. But it's belonged to a metric boatload of teams. Specifically, over 50 teams have actually owned the title, or should I say the best way to word it is they've won at least one title match, which means they held the title at one particular point. For example, these are all of the teams that have held the title just one time: Algeria, Venezuela, Turkey, South Korea, Sierra Leone, Israel, Curacao, and Australia. Now, you might notice that there's actually somebody missing from this, because there is a team that's won it multiple times, and that would be Liberia. In the United States, Liberia also has as many title defenses, won, as Portugal. Portugal has had 22 matches for the unofficial Football World Championship and only won 2 of them. Georgia also has 2 of them, and Ecuador has 2. Republic of Ireland has 3. Mexico has 3. Poland and Nigeria have 4. Serbia, Northern Ireland, Ivory Coast, and Belgium all have 5. Denmark and Bulgaria have 6. You've got Angola and Zimbabwe that have won 7 matches involving the unofficial Football World Championship. Costa Rica has freaking 8. Bolivia has won 8 of these matches. I mean, look, there are some random teams in here. I can keep going. North Korea has won 10 matches relating to this, which is the same number as Switzerland, and again is 8 more than Portugal. There's a certain element of randomness, but also awesomeness to this. And there is also a certain class of team that is far and above the rest. That starts with Sweden and Uruguay, who have both won 28 matches pertaining to the title. But I want you to guess. Who do you think is the team that actually has the most? Right? There's some context clues involved in here, but who has the most title defenses, even if it is Algeria's throne right now? We've got to wait for Algeria to lose to somebody to pass this amazing title on. Who has the most defenses? Well, Germany is in 9th. Okay, and they've got 31. France is in 8th. They've got 33. You got to remember teams that would have been winning this way back in the day. Brazil has 7. That was a good guess. 38. Russia has 6. They're 6th. They've 41. 41 matches to defend it there. And then Italy's in 5th. Netherlands is actually in 4th with a massive 58 matches played that they have won relating to the unofficial Football World Championship. The Netherlands actually owns this thing. They do a really good job with it. Argentina's in 3rd with 72 matches won defending the unofficial Football World Championship. They played in 116 matches that pertain to this title. Obviously, their unbeaten run after winning the World Cup, basically after losing to Saudi Arabia, they ended up having to take it from Croatia. Because Croatia entered the World Cup with it. Eventually, Argentina ended the World Cup with it, carried it out of the World Cup for a long unbeaten run, which definitely helped. Number 2 is England, who only has 1 more match played and won than Argentina, which is crazy because it was bouncing around the British Isles for 60 years. Scotland has 86. So Scotland has won the most matches around the unofficial Football World Championship. They are trying to find their way to get it back. And there is a little table actually on the Wikipedia that shows the holder going into the World Cup. Say in 2018, it was Peru that went into the World Cup with it. And multiple occasions, the holder doesn't qualify for the World Cup for whatever reason. And the trophy doesn't even go into the World Cup. Like the England, Scotland, whatever, they didn't bring it to the first 3 World Cups because they didn't go. Okay. You see how the holder is absent from each of these competitions. It was England, Wales, and Scotland, and you see the absent holders over here. The Netherlands had the longest run, by the way, from 28 to 2010, where they were the holders of the competition, at least the longest run of teams that own it in a long time. But that's it. But this is the thing. It's been tracked since the dawn of time. In Algeria, according to a different way of measuring it, are the reigning football world champions until they lose to somebody. Personally, I'm rooting for them to lose to some team that's even lower ranked than Liberia because, yes, Liberia is the lowest ranked team internationally to ever hold the unofficial Football World Championship. Unfortunately, I have discovered this just mere days since it was, won by Algeria on the 17th of November. Liberia, 2 weeks ago was your unofficial Football World Champion. That's the reality we live in.